You see, this is a marriage that, I mean, for years I have thought about these two, this couple, and how their marriage unraveled. And I believe personally that Katie Holmes buckled under public pressure. And that public pressure was simply to destroy the relationship for the sake of destroying the relationship. They didn't really give a crap about Katie Holmes, right? And they knew that whatever Tom Cruise's issues are, he wasn't that bad. He wasn't that bad. He was a nice guy, but she was weak. I say that because, you know, I have observed that the public can be very, very destructive in the relationship of certain couples. You know, for whatever reason, one or a couple of people decide that this couple, we don't accept this couple, and they start a whole thing about the couple, and then it catches fire. I mean, it catches on, and everybody, it's like a copycat sheep kind of a phenomenon where everybody joins the bandwagon and starts to pound that couple to death, right? And kudos to Harry and Meghan that, first of all, they've lasted now. They're together now, I think, 5 or 6 years. It's going to be their 6th year anniversary probably this year. And they dated for a couple of years. So they've been together about 7 years. And even while they were dating, the public was busy trying to bust up their relationship. Kudos to them. They were not Katie Holmes and Tom Cruise, right? They were solid, they were together, and they were confident in their relationship, right? And as I have said repeatedly, if this relationship does unravel, it's going to be from within. It's not from an outside force. I really think that Katie Holmes was a very weak woman. I've always felt that way. I've never said it out loud, but I think she's a very, very emotionally weak woman. You know, they were after her relationship, they were after her marriage, and it wasn't because they loved her so much, right? Because they didn't replace Tom with a better man for Katie. They just left Katie blowing in the wind for nearly a decade, if not more, all by herself with all kinds of weird losers. And I say that with all respect deserved, right? All kinds of weird losers, one after the other, in weird hookups that she's had since her marriage to Tom Cruise. I just, sometimes I actually get a little bit irritated with Katie Holmes, right? I know I probably shouldn't be so honest about it, but I get irritated because I feel that she was very, very weak and she buckled under pressure and she listened to people who did not necessarily have her best interest at heart. Because, yes, I'm sure her husband was not perfect, but point me in the direction of one perfect husband on the face of this earth, and I will call both you and he a bloody hypocrite. There is no such thing as a perfect husband. There is no such thing as a perfect wife. There is no such thing as a perfect relationship. However, what Tom Cruise brought to the table and to that relationship and to that marriage, I mean, I remember that relationship. Yes, he was a little bit, wild in the beginning, jumping on Oprah's couch and this and that, because, he's an actor, right? He's a dramatic guy. He was just being silly, right? He was being silly, and he's allowed to be silly. We're all allowed to be silly, and he's an entertainer. He was just trying to entertain the audience. It didn't mean that he didn't love his wife. I remember seeing this man with his daughter, Suri. This man loved his daughter, okay? He loved his daughter. I remember that one time when he went wherever he went, he came back and he stooped down and Suri ran to her father and he just picked her up in his arms. You can't act this. This man loved his daughter. And whatever happened, and all of these people beating that relationship with their wet tongues just to be um, busybodies and interlopers and minding other people's business when they needed to be minding their own business. Some of them had spouses beating the living bejesus out of them on a regular basis, and they were pointing fingers at Katie and Tom, just like they're pointing at Harry and Meghan, right? They have no business pointing fingers. Sorry about that, I ran out of space, but they have no business pointing fingers at other people's relationships when their own relationships quite often are an even bigger mess than the one they're talking about. And Katie Holmes, I feel, was a weak minded woman. And too bad because, again, since she divorced this man, she hasn't gotten anything better. And he's still there. He's still there being himself, being a decent human being. There have been no scandals. He hasn't been arrested. He's not on drugs. He's not in rehab. He hasn't beaten any woman to a pulp. He hasn't been accused of any kind of, nefarious activities that involves FBI raiding his home. This is a basically decent guy who happened to have certain religious beliefs that certain key people felt was not up to their standard. And so they were judgmental about it, and they ripped apart this man's marriage and family because of it. And the woman in the relationship, Katie Holmes, was a weak minded woman, and she let them get into her head. And that was dumb. I think that was completely dumb. I think it was completely stupid. This is my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. And I'm so glad that Harry and Meghan didn't allow that to happen, because they easily could have allowed that to happen. They could easily have been divorced by now, 5 years into 6 years into their marriage, based on the amount of pressure that was put into tearing them apart. And they would have gone the same way as Katie Holmes and Tom Cruise. And for what good? For what good? Because again, you can see that Tom Cruise is a decent man. He's living his life. I mean, he may have his religious idiosyncrasies, but this is a basically decent man. He's not sex trafficking anybody. He's not doing a whole bunch of stuff that other people are doing, right? He's living a life that I think is a decent life, right? And just like Meghan and Harry would have been split apart, and they're living their life, their decent life. If Meghan was weak-minded, or if Harry was weak-minded, in this case, perhaps even more Harry, because is the one they wanted to pull out of this relationship. I mean, you know what, the truth is that when you have a relationship, it is better to keep your relationship out of the public, to be perfectly honest with you,